watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Good afternoon to you. Welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. Here is a live look at the White House, where we expect President Trump to make an announcement any minute now from the Oval Office. We will take you live to that announcement when it begins. We do know the president expected to sign an executive order today renaming the Department of Defense as the Department of War. We should also note that Senator Rick Scott, a Republican from Florida, and Congressman Greg Steube, a Republican from Florida's 17th district, have both filed legislation in their respective chambers to make that change law. So we are waiting that announcement. We will bring that to you live when it begins. We are also tracking breaking news this afternoon here on Fox 35 News Plus. Bond denied for a Melbourne murder suspect. This is the scene inside the courtroom in Brevard County just a few moments ago, as Stefan DeJuste, a 24-year-old, was remanded into custody. He is facing charged with second-degree murder in the death of 19-year-old Nathaniel Jennings. This shooting happened May 11th outside the Neon Rodeo nightclub in Melbourne. A several-hour bond hearing earlier today, and DeJuste will stay in custody after his bond was denied. Well, it is 4:01, and that means it's time for today's Top 4 at 4, where we break down 4 of the big stories that we are tracking today in the Fox 35 newsroom. And joining me for today's Top 4 at 4 is Fox 35 News anchor John Brown. And John, thanks for being here.
And good afternoon. We'll start with Florida Congressman Cory Mills in court today. He spent the morning in court for a hearing to see if his ex-girlfriend would get that restraining order against him. Lindsay Langston is the reigning Miss United States, and that's her right there, and she filed the restraining order. She claims that he threatened her by exposing nude photos and also videos, along with implied threats of violating her and any other potential partners down the road. Mills described the allegations as a mischaracterization in the Columbia County Courthouse today. Now, the pair dated for about 3 years until she says she discovered Mills was unfaithful in their relationship. Now, she did speak today in court, and I believe we have that, right? Let's hear from her first of all.
Oh, we don't have a soundbite from her, but we do have a soundbite from Fox 35's Randy Hildreth, who was inside the courtroom as Lindsay was speaking, and Randy kind of talked a little bit about Lindsay's demeanor as she was on the stand and as she kind of didn't interact with Cory Mills. Here's that soundbite.
She did not look at Cory Mills. Did not, obviously considering the nature of today's hearing, not much interaction between the two of them. She did get very emotional at times, at some points crying on the stand about what this meant for her. We are sitting behind. We're sitting behind them, so I couldn't see what her facial expressions looked like during Cory Mills as he was testifying.
And so described her getting emotional in the courtroom as well.
Now, a lot of people wondering also if Cory Mills can be removed from office for this. The answer is yes and no. The reason why no is it might be a little bit difficult. The one thing that they could be looking at is a censure, which means absolutely nothing. Anytime people talk about censure, it's like, what's that mean? Nothing. So they could go that route, even if he's not convicted here. But 2/3 in the House in order to evict him. And so I was talking with a congressman up there today, and he said right now he doesn't think they'd have the votes, even though these text messages look pretty bad. If you saw them on the court records here, they look pretty bad. And he said the only thing that would change is if President Trump decides that he too would like to move in a different direction, then you could easily rally enough lawmakers to vote to get him out. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Interesting to watch it on multiple fronts then, because we are still waiting on a decision. That court hearing there kind of been adjourned for the day, but it is not over. There's still more to come in that hearing, and we'll see where things go with that. But yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point.
Yeah,
kind of political ramifications.
And even with this one, an unrelated attorney who's associated with the case in I guess an arm's length distance, says this is kind of pointless anyway because they haven't communicated ever since this incident. So the restraining order probably not that big of a deal at this point. So this may not be the one that would cause a censure vote or whatever else might happen. But when we actually get to the charges here in this case, that could be the thing that actually, 2 separate cases. That's what people need to keep in mind. Restraining order is one thing. The charges, something else. The charges are the bigger deal right now. So we'll see if that goes.
Yeah.
All right. Former Commissioner Regina Hill is officially qualified to run once again for District 5 Orlando City Council seat in the election coming up on November the 4th. She made that announcement today. Governor Ron DeSantis, of course, suspended her from the position last year after she was indicted for elder exploitation and fraud in connection with the alleged relationship with a 96-year-old constituent. People probably remember this story here. So it's interesting that she's going to be running for the same seat again. Now she's going to be running against one other person at this point. That's Shan Rose. Shan Rose won the special election in June of 2024 last year to replace Hill and is seeking re-election. So this is almost identical to what we saw with the prosecutor here in Orange, Osceola counties. Suspended, comes back to run again. Now will she win? I'm not for sure in this case, so we'll see. But wow, it's funny how these two have parallels like nothing I've ever seen in politics. Identical situations here.
Regina Hill fired up, as you see in that news conference there. I would point out one change, I think, in the situation, and that is that Regina Hill still facing criminal charges.
That is true.
Where Monique Worrell was criticized for her handling of things, but certainly was not facing any sort of criminal charges. But Regina Hill still facing that criminal case. She echoed today that she believes she will be exonerated, and she had a number of supporters there behind her holding signs. And so that's going to be an interesting race to watch for that District 5 Commission seat.
It certainly will. So we'll go all through this again coming up in November. There we go. All right, Orange County judge orders that former Orange County deputy who is accused of murder will remain behind bars right now. Anthony Shea, that's him right there on your left. He appeared in court yesterday to request a bond to get out of jail while awaiting trial. He's facing charges related to the death of his estranged wife, Ellie Shea. Initially, her death was thought to be a suicide, but officials said a recording may have changed the case. It was a recording on her phone and has shifted the investigation into a homicide case. Investigators say they discovered the recording on Ellie Shea's phone that captured Anthony Shea telling his child she's sleeping. And that was shortly after a text message was sent from Ellie's phone to his phone. Okay? Investigators allege that Anthony Shea sent the message himself to create a false alibi. Now, according to a report, Anthony Shea reportedly waited about 40 minutes before calling 911, further raising more questions and suspicions about the circumstances of Ellie's death.
You know, it was a very interesting bond hearing yesterday that went on for hours. We streamed a lot of it here on Fox Local, and then the judge basically saying she needed to kind of look over some of the legal, kind of cases and that kind of thing before she issued that ruling today, denying that bond request. So we heard some of that recording played in court yesterday as well. Going to be a case to watch.
Yeah, and people also need to remember he was fired for previous to this. So I mean, there's a lot of different factors at play here about who is supporting him and who's not there. All right, Seminole High School plans to honor a former player who was shot in Tallahassee last weekend. Ethan Pritchard was shot on Sunday, not long after his Florida State Seminoles upset Alabama. Pritchard committed to the university during his junior year at Seminole High because that's where his mother went, although he never really knew his mother because she died shortly after he was born. So he did it more or less to honor her. That's why he committed so early. So they're going to have a big ceremony at the game against Lyman tonight. They're also helping raise money for his medical care. There's a GoFundMe out there. It's already raised about $100,000.
Yeah, good to see that the community support, really rallying behind him. You can only imagine kind of getting that call. We know his dad has been by his side since this happened. Yeah. So just a tough situation.
Yeah, hopefully he comes out okay.
Yeah. Well, John, we appreciate you joining us for our Top 4 at 4. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus and another live look at the White House. We do expect to hear from President Trump any minute now, making that announcement from the Oval Office, expected to talk about an executive order to change the name of the Department of Defense back to the Department of War. That was what that department was originally called, I believe, up until around the time of World War II. So kind of hearkening back to an older time there with that name change and some different priorities that he wants to kind of highlight with that. We've seen support from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, from some lawmakers here in Florida as well. I mentioned earlier about Senator Rick Scott and Congressman Greg Steube filing legislation to make that name change into law. So we're standing by for that announcement, and we'll bring that to you live when it begins. Well, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer joins me live now. And TJ, nice to have you in here today. And we're kind of looking forward to the weekend and looking like a little bit better of a weekend forecast this time around, because I know a lot of us were complaining for the holiday weekend, but not as much to complain about this time.
I would say Saturday definitely looks a little bit drier than Sunday. Sunday, I still think it could be a little bit more unsettled. Sadly enough, we've been in this large-scale pattern, Garrett, where we've had this dip in the jet stream kind of positioned over the eastern side of the nation, the East Coast really, and that has just kept things wetter. And I know it's the rainy season for us, so we deal with the rain, but it just feels like it's been wetter than our typical classic Florida days that we're all used to.
and some different patterns with it too, some different times that we kind of see that, so it really has been a little atypical, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have a fair amount of rain out there right now. I mean, for some of us, not for all of us, but we are seeing some showers and thunderstorms, and we can see these kind of favoring the Space Coast right now. Even around the metro as a whole, we've seen some of these drift in, and we'll continue to see these kind of little by little working away from us as we progress through the remainder of the evening. But if you're out this evening across northern Brevard County right now, I would say you'll definitely have some potential slowdowns on the roadways as we get closer to the evening drive. And probably just want to grab the umbrella. If you're heading out for any Friday night football games as well, you'll want to keep tabs on the radar. But I do think as we progress deeper into the evening, we'll see a lot of these fade away. We still have that onshore flow. That's what's been driving this somewhat unsettled pattern that we've been dealing with, but certainly not quite as wet as what we had over the holiday weekend. There's our live look in Orlando from our Evermore Resort camera. We can see some of the blue sky, but we can also see, looking off to the west, some darker clouds as well. So if you are getting out, I would say still may want to pat the rain gear just in case, but overall it's not looking too bad for the majority of us. It's all thanks to this boundary. It's still draped across the southern half of the state, and that's providing the lift. Notice there is an area of low pressure out in the Gulf right now, and that disturbance eventually will move our way, likely into our Sundays. That's what's going to kind of drive that potential for a little more shower and thunderstorm activity overnight. Any storms that are out there, we'll likely see these fade away. We'll fall back into the lower to middle 70s. I would say fairly normal for this time of the year. Averages in the mid 70s, so we're still pretty close to that. And then tomorrow, right around our seasonable norms as well in the lower 90s. But we're still going to have those hit or miss showers and thunderstorms. If you have park plans, maybe you're getting out to Hollywood Studios, I would say bring the poncho in the backpack, maybe bring the umbrella too, just in case. You can see nowhere near a washout, but certainly hit or miss storms for the afternoon and evening. We'll see those here on our Fox weather model. Notice by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, we're not seeing all that much. And then as we head into the wee hours of our Saturday, we'll start to see these kind of fade away. And then I would say, honestly, Garrett, as we head through the week, it looks fairly Florida-esque, a 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms every single day. But, not washouts. I think we'll likely have sunshine in the morning, and then we'll have our classic afternoon thunderstorms.
All right. Well, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer, we appreciate you joining us here.
Of course. Thanks, man.
Now, we want to get you to the White House here, where President Trump just signed the Homebuyers Privacy Protection Act, which blocks homeowners' private data and information from being sold after buying a house. Let's go ahead and listen in as this announcement continues live from the Oval Office.
It's an American flag.
That's very nice. I like that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. That's very nice.
Next, we have a number of executive orders for your attention, sir.
Okay.
From 1789 until 1947, our nation won some of its greatest military victories under the direction of a Secretary of War operating within a Department of War. Today, with this executive order, you will authorize the current Secretary of Defense and the current Department of Defense to once again embrace this great lineage and once again be named the Secretary of War and the Department of War.
So this is something we thought long and hard about. We've been talking about it for months, Pete and I, and Dan. Dan came into the fold. By the way, a great general. He headed up the, I wouldn't call it an attack. I'd almost call that one maybe even more than an attack. What he did with Iran, you saw the success of that operation. It was perfect. In fact, this was sent to me by the great company that makes that particular B-2 bomber. And it was flawless. It was actually flawless. They flew for 37 hours back and forth, and there wasn't a bolt that was out of condition. There wasn't an engine failure. There was no problem. It was a perfect attack, and it knocked out any possible nuclear capability for Iran, which nobody wanted to see, and we weren't going to put up with. So great job, Dan. And we've been talking about this Department of War. So we won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything before that and in between. And then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War. And I'd like to ask our Secretary of War to say a few words. Pete Hegseth. I think it's a much more appropriate name, especially in light of where the world is right now. We have the strongest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest manufacturers of equipment by far. There's nobody to even compete. And you see that with this and so many other things. The Patriots are the best. Every element of the military, we make the best by far. So Pete, I'd like to ask you and maybe Dan Raisin-Cane to say a few words, please.
Mr. President, thank you. After winning a war for independence in 1789, George Washington established the War Department, and Henry Knox was his first Secretary of War. And this country won every major war after that, to include World War I and World War II. Total victory, Mr. President, as you said. Then 150 years after that, we changed the name after World War II from the Department of War to the Department of Defense in 1947. And as you pointed out, Mr. President, we haven't won a major war since, and that's not to disparage our warfighters, whether it's the Korean War, or the Vietnam War, or our generation of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's to recognize that this name change is not just about renaming, it's about restoring. Words matter. It's restoring, as you've guided us to, Mr. President, restoring the warrior ethos, restoring victory and clarity as an end state, restoring intentionality to the use of force. So at your direction, Mr. President, the War Department is going to fight decisively, not endless conflicts. It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. So this War Department, Mr. President, just like America, is back. Thank you for your leadership and your clarity. We're going to set the tone for this country. America first, peace through strength, brought to you by the War Department. We're back.
All right, thank you very much. Very well stated, and really it has to do with winning. We should have won every war. We could have won every war, but we really chose to be very politically correct or wokey, and we just fight forever. And then we'd, win, lose. We wouldn't lose, really. We just fight to sort of tie. We never wanted to win. Wars that every one of them we would have won easily with just a couple of little changes or a couple of little edicts. I was told that ISIS would take 5 years to win. And Dan Kane, when I told him how long would it take, he said, I think about 4 weeks, sir. I said, what do you mean 4 weeks? I was told 5 years by the people in Washington. You know who they were? 5 years. I said, you can't do it in 4 weeks. I actually flew to Iraq to meet with him, and I met him at a big air base, and remember that famous day, right? It turned out to be a famous day for our country because you're now the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the biggest deal. And he is because he did things that everybody said he couldn't do. So they said it was going to be 5 years, and he knocked them out in about 4 weeks total, 100%. We took over, and ISIS was gone, and pretty amazing. But we never fought to win, and now if we have to fight it all, we solved 7 wars. We have the one that I thought was going to be probably one of the easier ones, and that's with President Putin and Ukraine. And that turned out to be one that's a little bit more difficult, but the 7 are done. They were supposed to be much more difficult to solve. I solved every one of them, and we're going to get the other one done too. But it turned out to be a little bit more difficult than I thought. And it'll get done or they'll be held to pay. But because they're losing 6 to 7, it used to be 5. I used to tell you 5. Now it's almost 7. I guess 7,000 people last week. 7,813 people, young soldiers died. Russian and Ukrainian, not American soldiers. But it's a shame. And it's just, they're human lives, and I want to see it stop. But General Kane's done a fantastic job. And again, defeated ISIS, which they said would take a long time. And it didn't take a long time at all, and did other things that people said really couldn't happen. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest soldiers in the world. Dan, say a few words, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. It's a true honor for me today to represent the incredible men and women of America's Joint Force. Today and every day, the 2.8 million service men and women stand ready to fulfill our sacred duty to protect America at home and abroad. As the President said, America's military is the single most powerful fighting force in the world. The mission you and the Secretary have given us is clear and unambiguous: to deliver peace through overwhelming strength. And I remind everyone that the U.S. military can reach any adversary at the time and place of our choosing. Service to this nation is an incredible gift, and we're grateful and honored every day to do so. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, and it's an honor to sign this, and we will do that right now. I think that's a big one, I'll be honest. That's a big one.
It's a big one, Mr. President.
Do you have any questions on this subject? We're going to be discussing the G20 in a couple of minutes, but yes, please.
Mr. President,
right there.
what gave you the idea for this rebrand? And a question for you, the newly minted Secretary of War. What message does this send to our enemies, to our allies, to the American people? And again, what gave you the idea for this rebrand at this moment in history?
I think it sends a message of victory. I think it sends really a message of strength. We're very strong. We're much stronger than anyone would really understand. And again, having the great equipment, we have just so much better. You look at all of the, just any of it, submarines as an example. We're 20 years ahead of anyone else. Nobody even compares. And I let a lot of this happen in my first term. We totally rebuilt our military. And then, of course, you had that catastrophe in Afghanistan where they gave up a lot of the equipment, but a relatively small amount, but a lot. It was a lot in Afghanistan. I think it was the most, General, I'd say it was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country, the way that happened, the way they went to the wrong airport. They should have gone to Bagram, not the local little airport with no security, with tight quarters, etc. You know what happened. I think it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, frankly. That was under the Biden administration. That was terrible. And we were going to be leaving, but we were leaving with strength and dignity. We were going to keep Bagram because Bagram's 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. We're going to have that all to ourselves, a big, beautiful place built many years ago from money that today would be the equivalent of, many, many billions of dollars. You couldn't build it. The longest runways, the most powerful runways in terms of load capacity. And we just walked away from it. So stupid. And they were fools. The people were fools. No, We have the strongest military, and I think that indicates we have the strongest military. And we had it, and we won World War I, we won World War II, we won everything before, and as I said, we won everything in between. And we were very strong, but we never fought to win. We just didn't fight to win. We didn't lose anything, but we didn't fight to win. We could have won every one of those wars quickly, but they went a route that I think was probably politically correct, but not correct for our nation. So I think the Department of War sends a signal. Yeah, please.
Mr. You alluded to this a little while ago, but you said that this rename is a good reflection of where the world is at right now. How do you square naming it the Department of War when you've been pursuing peace in so many different parts of the world?
Well, I think I've gotten peace because of the fact that we're strong. If we weren't strong, those 7 deals I told you about, the 7 wars, a majority of them wouldn't have happened. They happened for 2 reasons, trade and our strength. Those are the 2 reasons. And probably strength may be more important than trade. So if I was very proud of all those wars. Those were wars that could not be settled, and I settled all of them. And we'll get the other one settled also. That'll get settled. But without the strength, we wouldn't have settled any of them. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, is it your expectation that Congress will codify this name change in the law?
I don't know, but we're going to find out, but I'm not sure they have to. We're signing an executive order today, but we're going to find out. We're going to see. If they do, we're going with it, and we're going with it very strongly. There's a question as to whether or not they have to, but we'll put it before Congress.
Do you know how much this rebrand will actually cost? And are there any concerns about, the Pentagon's mission of actually cutting back on spending?
Yeah, but not a lot. We know how to rebrand without having to go crazy. We don't have to recarve a mountain or anything. We're going to be doing it not in the most expensive. We're going to start changing the stationery as it comes due and lots of things like that. We're not going to be doing things like have been done in the past when they changed the name of forts that shouldn't have been changed. Those names of the forts should not have been changed, at least for the most part. And as you know, many of them have been changed back already. At the request of the communities, every one of those communities said, we want our name back, like Fort Bragg as an example. The people in that community wanted that name back. They refused to call it anything else but Fort Bragg. So we're not going to be spending very much money on that. Yes,
Sir, when you spoke with the Europeans and Zelensky earlier this week, did you preview this for them, and did you say what security guarantees they might be involved in?
This is nothing to do with anybody but the United States of America, the people of America. This is who I talked to about changing a name. This is a very important change because it's an attitude, and we know how to win. We've been winning, and we're going to win like you've never seen. Wait till these factories start to open up that are being built all over the country. You're going to see things happen in this country that nobody expects. We have over $17 trillion in investment coming into the country. We never did anything even remotely close to that. No other country has either, by the way. So you're going to see things that are pretty amazing. But it's really about winning.
And what about the security guarantees aspect of that with Ukraine, sir?
Well, we'll work that out. We'll help them. Look, we want to save a lot of lives, so we'll do something with that. I think people expect that. We'll help them. Europe will be first in by far, and they want to be first, and they want to see it end. Europe wants to see it end, and it'll end. It'll end all of a sudden. It's going to come together. You watch. Yeah, did you want something right?
Right here.
Yeah, behind you, please. Yes.
Yes, sir. You haven't been shy about taking bold, decisive, offensive action to protect American values. Strikes in Iran, the strikes this past Tuesday, and the positively ID'd Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists. Is that going to be a critical function of the Department of War moving forward?
It depends on the individual instance, We don't want drugs coming in from Venezuela or anybody else or any place else, and we'll be tough on that. We don't want human trafficking. We don't want to see people coming in where they open their prisons from all over the world and they dump their prisoners into our country, which is what they did in the Biden administration, where they took insane asylums and places that held people that were seriously mentally ill, mentally incompetent, mentally dangerous, and they dumped those people into our country, and we're trying to get them out now. What they've done, what the Democrats and Biden have done to this country will go down in infamy what they have done to our country, and especially that. You know, they created the worst inflation we've ever had. That's nothing compared to what they did with the people in our country right now. And we're getting them out, and it's not easy when you have the liberal judges destroying our country. But we've won them all. We've won it all, ultimately won it all. Hard process. It should be easier. We know who it is. We know exactly who we're looking for. We had 11,000 murderers dropped into our country. We've gotten a lot of them out. Or in some cases, they're so dangerous, we were afraid to get them out because they'd come back in. But for the last 120 days, 0 people came in. Can you imagine? This is me speaking, but these are figures developed by, they say, a pretty liberal group of people. They admit that 0 people came into our country. Think of that. A year ago, it was millions of people were coming in. Millions. They were coming in. You could look at them and you could say, big trouble. And that's what we have in our country. But we're getting them out, and despite that, we're doing really well. Yeah, please, Brian.
Comment on the recruitment levels across the
branches. Well, the recruitment's the most exciting thing. So when I was campaigning for the office, numbers were coming out that the recruitment numbers, generally, you could speak to it better than anybody, the recruitment into the military, all branches of the military, and police and firemen and everything else. Anything having to do with like a public service, the numbers were horrible, record-setting bad. And now they're record-setting good. We're setting every record every month for recruitment. We're packed in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. My beautiful I love Space Command. I see Space Command, but Space Force has been, we've got a waiting list of people wanting to go in. A year ago, especially a year and a half ago, you know, when I took the lead in the polls, which was very early, it really helped with the recruiting. And when I won from November 5th on, it's been amazing. And over the last 4 or 5 months, we're just packed. It was very hard to get police officers. Now the departments are loaded up. Everyone wants to be a policeman or woman. So it's been a great thing. General, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. As you said, serving our nation is an incredible gift that we give, and the reward on that gift pays back exponentially year over year. And I think the young people of America are seeing the importance of service, and whether it's in any of our armed services or in local police, fire, or rescue, service is an important thing that I personally encourage, and I know everyone else in government service sees that same reward.
And Pete, on recruitment, what do you think?
I was down at Fort Benning, the newly properly renamed Fort Benning, yesterday, watching Army basic training, and they're so full they can't barely handle the throughput. It is truly historic across all the services, as you said. It's been a surge into the, I was going to say the Defense Department, but I will say the War Department. And that you might almost call it a vibe shift, an attitude shift, a feeling that the country is back, that service is back. And there were military families last year, Mr. President, that said, I don't know if I can recommend, I wrote a book on this. I don't know if I can recommend service to my son or daughter, given what's been done to our military. You heard it over and over and over again. And I hear from those same military families right now, sir, and they're saying, I recommend to my kids that they go into this department, this Pentagon, under this commander-in-chief, who they know you'll have their back and they want to serve. So it is historic, and it's the biggest reflection of how motivated Americans are by your leadership, sir.
You know, really, it's nothing more than spirit, love for the country. I guess the esprit de corps, as they say, you have more of that than we've had maybe ever, frankly. But to see a turn over a period of less than a year, I would say, but to see a turn, nobody wanted to go into the military. Now everybody wants to go into the military. Jennifer, you wanted?
Yeah, there's some new reporting on North Korea and this Navy SEAL incident in 2019. Can you say if the administration has engaged with North Korea on that incident since it happened recently? Yeah. And then can you share some recollections?
I don't know anything about it, no. I'd have to, I could look, but I know nothing about it.
Can you confirm that it happened?
I don't know anything about it. I'm hearing it now for the first time.
Okay, great. And then on the Hyundai incident in Georgia with the arrest of some workers, construction workers at the plant, have you heard any feedback from Hyundai?
I just heard about that a little while before the news conference, and I would say that they were illegal aliens, and ICE was just doing its job. but I know nothing about the instance. It happened a little while ago. Okay?
There has been some pushback on that, though, from South Korea already, and of course, they pledged to invest $150 billion in the U.S. when they were just here, last week. Are you concerned?
Well, and they have the right to sell cars and things in our country. It's not like a one-sided deal.
Are you concerned at all about, your immigration agenda potentially clashing with these economic goals?
Well, we want to get along with other countries, and we want to have a great, stable workforce. And we had, as I understand it, a lot of illegal aliens, some not the best of people, but we had a lot of illegal aliens working there. So, look, they're doing their job. That's what they have to do. These are people that came through with Biden. They came through illegally. They came into our country, so we have to do our job.
Mr. President, the now Department of War has been involved in the crime cleanup in D.C. You've tasked Congress with proposing and passing a crime bill. What are some things that you would really like to see codified in that crime bill?
Well, I think one of the things is the cashless bail. It's killing it. When that came out, the first time, that's when you saw the real big crime start to happen. Cashless bail, what a disaster that is. You murder somebody, you don't have to put up bail, and you go out in the street and you murder somebody else. That's what's happened. It happens so often, and that's one of the things. And other of the things you're reading about, is this standard, but just a certain toughness. I have to say, one of the elements of fascination for people over the last period of time has been what's happened to D.C. So we've gone from one of the most dangerous cities in our country to what they call a safe city. It's a totally safe city. In fact, I set up dinner in Washington, D.C. next week. I wouldn't have done that, to be honest. I would have had an obligation not to do it before I came into office, or even at the very beginning when things were so corrupt and so dangerous out on the streets. So Washington, D.C. has had virtually no crime. We even have a mayor that's admitting to it, and she's a, liberal Democrat, in all fairness. She's a person that hasn't gotten exactly along with Republicans over the years. And she said she's never seen anything like it. So Washington, D.C. is a totally safe city. We have virtually no crime. It's gone from the most unsafe city in the United States, almost, just about, to one of the safest cities, maybe the safest city in the United States. That's a tremendous compliment to our military, what we did. The National Guard's done a fantastic job. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, can I ask about Florida real quick? Florida House Speaker Daniel Perez was at the White House yesterday as part of a leadership summit.
Yes.
And we understand you met with him separately. Mr. President, what did you two talk about? And also, did you explore him running for Florida Attorney General?
I didn't. We didn't talk about that, but he's done a fantastic job. He's respected all over the country, really. He's a leader, and he's done just a fantastic job. We didn't discuss anything having to do with his future. I'm sure he'd be very good at that.
My second question, Alligator Alcatraz, sticking with Florida, a major ruling appeals court blocked a federal judge's order to close it, and it can remain open for now. Your reaction?
I think they've done a fantastic job in building it, the governor and everybody else that's been involved. It's an incredible facility. It's housing people for usually a very short period of time before they get brought back to their countries. As you know, we focus on criminals before we focus on anybody else, and we're taking thousands and thousands of criminals out every month out of our country, some of them murderers. And I think Florida's done a great job by building it, and whether it's Alligator Alcatraz or anything else you want to call it, I was there. I visited with the governor, with other people. I guess Nikki was there. Tom Homan's been there a lot. A lot of people have been there. It's an amazing facility for what it is. It's not a hotel. It's not supposed to be a hotel, but they've done a great job with it. And I'm very happy with the judge's decision.
You also mentioned Venezuela. I want to ask one more follow-up question on that. On the U.S. strike on a vote tied to a Venezuelan drug cartel, the Maduro regime is pushing back today. In fact, they say the U.S. seeks regime change through military threat. Your reaction to those words, and also, would you like to see regime change in Venezuela? Well,
we're not talking about that, but we are talking about the fact that you had an election which was a very strange election, and to put it mildly. I'm being very nice when I say that. I can only say that billions of dollars of drugs are pouring into our country from Venezuela. The prisons of Venezuela have been opened up to our country. They've taken their prisoners, the worst prisoners, murderers, Trinidad, the worst prisoners that you can ever imagine are now happily living in the United States of America. Now, many of them we've gotten out. It's not easy to get them out because of the liberal system that we're working with in many cases, not in all cases, but millions and millions of dollars and billions of dollars of drugs are pouring out of Venezuela and other countries. Look, China, what they're doing with fentanyl is a terrible thing. It comes through Canada and it comes through Mexico, but a lot of it's coming through Venezuela. Venezuela's been a very bad actor, and we understand that. And when you look at that boat, you see the bags of whatever it is there. Those bags were, you know what those bags represent? Hundreds of thousands of dead people in the United States. That's what they represent. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, your reaction to the jobs report this morning?
Well, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We have our great people here, so I'll talk that in a minute. Let's talk about this. We'll give a couple of because these two people want to get to work on the Department of War. So let's keep them first.
Mr. President, the DOJ is reportedly considering a ban on transgender people owning guns after the Minneapolis shooting. Do you think they should...
Are we talking in the military?
In general.
Okay, I thought you were talking about in the military. I'll refer to that then differently. Because it's not a military question, I'll be able to pass on that very nicely unless you'd like to talk about it. No, Pete doesn't want any part of that question. Yes, please.
Mr. President, who do you blame for losing India to China? In your post earlier today in the morning, you did put that out.
I don't think we have. I've been very disappointed that India would be buying so much oil, as you know, from Russia. And I let them know that. We put a very big tariff on India, 50% tariff, very high tariff. I get along very well with Modi, as you know. He's great. He was here a couple of months ago. In fact, we went to the Rose Garden, and the grass was so soaking wet. It was such a terrible place to have a news conference. I said, well, let's use a beautiful white stone emblematic of the White House, okay? And it's been very well received. But we had a news conference on the grass. That was my last news conference I had on the grass because everybody sunk in. You probably sunk in. Every reporter out there, they ruined their shoes. We made that change. It's been a really well-received change. Yeah, please, go ahead.
On Venezuela, you've sent F-35s down to Puerto Rico. You've sent naval vessels into the Caribbean. You're concerned about drugs being illegally sent into the United States. How do you describe this buildup, this situation?
Well, I just think it's strong. We're strong on drugs. We don't want drugs killing our people. I believe we lost 300,000. You know, they always say 95, 100,000. I believe they've been saying that for 20 years. I believe we lost 300,000 people last year. I know families that lost their son. Those families will never be the same. I know a family lost a daughter, a beautiful daughter. In fact, it was like she took something that she thought was like a minor deal, and it turned out to be riddled out with fentanyl. The size of the head of a pin, and you're dead. And no, we're stopping the drugs. We're going to save a lot of people. Look, whether it's 100,000, but it's not. It's 350,000 people died last year from drugs. And we're not going to let that happen to this country. Think of that. Think if you're in a war and you lose 300,000. We'll lose 600,000 in the, pretty much between Gettysburg and all of that, the Civil War, we lost, 600,000. So we're losing half of that every year to drugs. We're not going to do it. We're not going to allow it to happen. You think of the wars. If we lost 600,000 people in a war, but we lose that every 2 years, more than that. So it's 300 to 350,000 people. And when I see boats coming in, like loaded up the other day with all sorts of drugs, probably fentanyl mostly, but all sorts of drugs, and we're going to take them out. And if people want to have fun going on the high seas or the low seas, they're going to be in trouble. I will tell you, boat traffic is substantially down in the area that happened. They called it the runway. It's a runway to the United States. And boat traffic is very substantially down on the runway. You can imagine why. I think anybody that saw that is going to say, I'll take a pass. I don't even know about fishermen. They may say, I'm not getting on the boat. I'm not going to take a chance.
What happens if Venezuela flies jets over U.S. naval vessels again?
Well, I would say they're going to be in trouble. We'll let them know about that. We heard that happen, but it wasn't really over, not like they described. But I would say, General, if they do that, you have a choice of doing anything you want, okay? If they fly in a dangerous position, I would say that you can, you or your captains can make the decision as to what they want to do, all right? Sure.
Sir, how close did they get, Mr. President? You said they didn't go over.
Say it?
How close did they get? You said the planes did not
Well,
go
I don't want
over.
to talk about that, but if they do put us in a dangerous position, they'll be shut down. Thank you very much, everybody. So we're going to now cover the G20, and I'm going to let these people go back to the Department of War and figure out how to maintain peace. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Congratulations, General. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great job.
Sir, just before G20, we do have one more EO
Okay.
for you today. And I should also say that the Department of War EO that you signed was actually your 200th EO since you came back into office on January 20th. That's more than Joe Biden did in his entire term in office, more than Obama did in either of his 2 terms in office. So it's a momentous accomplishment, and congratulations.
That's good, but Biden never signed one.
No, yeah,
They
you've
were
done
signed
every
by
one
the-
up in here.
They've been signed by the auto pen, right, didn't he? So we really beat him by much more than you think.
The 201st executive order, sir, this relates to hostages and wrongfully detained Americans. This provides a new legal mechanism to declare foreign countries to be countries that engage in those sorts of practices and gives your administration powerful tools to get American hostages out. This has been a focus of your administration this time around. Adam Bowler's here, and he's done incredible work already. This will give him even more.
I think it's great, and
more
Adam's
tools.
amazing. So, Adam, do you want to describe how many hostages we've gotten out together, you and I, and you and a couple of other people that we know, and me and a couple of other people that you don't know, but we've gotten a lot of hostages. Do you want to describe it?
Mr. President, you brought back 72 hostages since your term. If we compare that to President Biden, he has gotten 20 taken. So he is negative
20 taken.
20 taken.
They don't take our people so often.
So, Mr. President,
That's great.
when we spoke, you said that that was a primary focus, and I'll tell you the job is easy because of you.
And we paid nothing, too.
We pay nothing. We
They
don't
pay
exchange.
$6 billion. They always paid $6 billion for 5 people. $6 billion. It was just a number I kept hearing. Not only that, $6 billion plus we'd get like 1 person, and they'd get 6. They got one, the Prince of Doom, they called him. He was the #1 arms merchant anywhere in the world ever. And they got him out. And on top of that, we paid money. So, no, we don't do that. You know, once you pay money, then a lot of people start disappearing. They start grabbing reporters, too. They think the reporter is going to get a lot of money. And to me, they would. You'll be well taken care of. I better stress that, because otherwise we have headlines. He said this or he said that. No, I'm not smiling about it. But they would. They'd be grabbing reporters. They'd be grabbing everybody. And especially when you pay the kind of money that Biden and Obama, they used to pay money that was crazy. We don't pay. And if you don't pay, they find it to be not a lucrative business anymore. That's fantastic. Would you like to say something?
Julia.
Sir, it's really Spihar, Special Envoy Bowler, it's Rick Grinnell, it's Steve Witkoff, who brought Americans home. But with this EO you are signing today, you are drawing a line in the sand that U.S. citizens will not be used as bargaining chips, and it provides your Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, the same tool set to punish states who take our citizens wrongfully the same way that we can punish those who sponsor terrorists. This is a very significant EO you are signing today, sir.
Thank you, Sebastian. Very good. You're doing a great job, too.
And this is your Director for Hostage Affairs at the NSC.
Yes, and I hear.
So Julia was seminal as well to all of this.
I heard you're doing unbelievable. Would you like to say something?
Absolutely. It's a outstanding EO, absolutely unprecedented action against those foreign adversaries who would take our people. They now know they are on notice, and it's not acceptable. And if you take our people now, you will pay.
You know, Adam gave up a job where he was making tremendous amounts of money, big stuff, top of the line Wall Street, and he wanted to do this. He wanted to do hostages. I offered him other jobs too, very big jobs. He said, I was shocked actually, he didn't want them. He wanted to do hostage negotiation, and pretty amazing. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
President.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you
you,
all.
sir.
Do you have any questions for them on this very important subject.
President Donald Trump there talking about hostages released. He's been signing multiple executive orders there. The biggest one that we've been keeping an eye on today, renaming the Department of Defense as the Department of War. And for a minute you saw there some of these signs being changed, the Department of Defense being taken off the wall there. And now here you see a new sign, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, no longer Secretary of Defense. We are going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Here is President Trump. Still taking a couple of questions here in the Oval Office. We do have a couple more minutes with you here on Fox 35 News Plus before we hand things off to Fox 35 News at 5. Let's go ahead and listen in as the president continues to speak from the Oval Office.
In this negotiation, can you believe? I mean, we negotiate for people that are living here. We know that at least 30 people are dead, and we're negotiating to get them out. The parents want them back so badly, as if they were alive. Every bit as much. It's really pretty amazing. It's very sad. I'm in the middle of it. And I put out the other day, I said, we want all 20. We don't want two. You know, I was the one with myself and my people, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner was great on this. But they got a lot of people out. We got almost all of them out. They're down to 20. But Adam, we got like a tremendous number out. But I always said when you get down to the final 10 or 20, you're not going to get them out unless you're going to do a lot. Capitulation, that's no good either. It's a very tough situation. But I put out the other day, let them all out. Every single one. No more twos and ones. We'll give you one this week, and in 2 months we'll give you two more. And there's negotiation going on right now. Okay.
And real quick, what is the biggest challenge negotiating with Hamas right now? 10 to 20. What do they want to let them free?
Well, they're asking for some things that are fine. Look, you have to understand, you have to remember October 7th. You know, people forget October 7th. It's not an easy thing to forget, right? But people forget, or they maybe purposely forget October 7th. So, you know, you have to put that into the equation very strongly. It's amazing. Some people even deny it. They deny it. They're crazy. But I've seen tape that's as violent as anything that you can imagine. Many of you have seen those same tapes. So you have to put that into the equation too. So it's not an easy situation. It's a tough one. But there are 20 people, maybe a little less, but there are 20 people that we want out. We want the bodies of these parents. They are, I've never seen anything like it. The level of love that they have, they want their children back. And, you know, I see demonstrations, big demonstrations in Israel about the hostages, not about the war, about the hostages, which puts Israel in a tough position because, you know, it's tough to prosecute a war when you have people they want the 20 people back. They just want them back very badly and everything that goes with it. So it's very sad. Thank you very much. We're going to talk now about the G20.
President Trump shifting gears, getting ready to talk about the G20 there. And we're out of time anyway here on Fox 35 News Plus. Let me go ahead and send you out to Studio A for the start of Fox 35 News at 5, where Marlisa and John are getting ready for that newscast. Thanks for watching here on Fox Local, where the news never stops. We'll be back on Monday with more Fox 35 News Plus. But again, the newscast here starts in about 15 seconds right here on Fox Local. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you on Monday.